Once again, very good morning to all. So today we will start with your module 4. Okay. So in this module we will see some of the characteristics and quality attributes of the embedded systems. Okay. So in the previous module we had the introduction to the embedded systems components. What are the different components of embedded systems? We saw about the core of the embedded system, which is nothing but the processor or microcontroller or FPGA or ASIC. So whichever is the central portion that takes care of the processing of the embedded system. And next we saw the memory. So processor and memory together constitute the key elements, or or it can be called as the main core, right? The processing units of the embedded system. Followed by this, we saw about sensors and actuators. We also saw different input output devices and several protocol network communication protocols. So these communication protocols included the protocols that works on board, which means on the chip, right? Like the communication between different functional blocks, for example between CPU and memory controller, or CPU DMA and bus controller or interrupt controller. So there are several functional blocks. So the communication between those, so we saw those protocols, and also we saw communication between an embedded system to the outside world, to another embedded system, or to the outside world, to the user or something, or to the internet. So we saw both wired and wireless communications. And following that, the last portion of the previous module, we saw other system components. These were the reset circuit, or the brownout protection circuit. These were these circuits were supposed to protect the system from voltage or current transients. And we also saw oscillators, which is used for clock, so generating clock pulses. And we also saw real time clock. Real time clock is nothing but use the continuous stream of clock pulses to maintain a wall clock time. And finally we saw watchdog timer. So watchdog timer is nothing but whenever a system hangs, an embedded system hangs, your watchdog timer will expect a petting signal or a reset signal to its timer from the CPU. But if the system hangs, then nobody will be there to pet the timer, which means nobody will be there to reset the timer. So it will expire. So once the timer expires in the watchdog timer, then it will send a reset signal to the CPU. So there will be like a reset pulse sent to the embedded system, so that it will reboot and be in a known state. Okay, so this is what we saw, a quick summary of the previous module, module 3. So in this module, we are going on to module 4. And in this module 4, we are going to see characteristics of embedded systems and also some quality attributes. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so these are the learning objectives. So I'll not discuss this in the interest of time. Okay, so you can go through it. I'll share these slides. So I found these slides in SlideShare. So it was really very good. It covered all the key points. It saved some time for me to. Okay, so coming to introduction. So the characteristics of embedded system are different from those of general purpose computer. Okay, and so are its quality metrics. So so we covered this briefly in the introduction to the embedded system in beginning of module 3. So I just want like one or two of you to share with the rest of us, how are these embedded system different. So can we have somebody discuss this, or should I pick some names? So this is a very it's a generic general kind of thing. So there's no it's not like we're not going to discuss any circuit or anything. It's going to be an introduction, and then we're going to list down the characteristic, and in this discussion will be of really a good help. You can understand it better. So let me start. Okay, so we'll start with Aditya. We'll go by the alphabetical order, I think. Aditya.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I just want to know, like, there's a point here mentioned, right? The characteristics of embedded systems are different from those of general purpose computer. Can you tell us, like, like how they are different? Why are they different? Like, any idea on that?
Sir, embedded systems are like for like one specific purpose, and general purpose computers can be used for like multiple different like applications and stuff. But embedded systems are like mostly like aimed at towards like one particular functionality.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. On the dot, right?
Yeah,
So
welcome.
yeah. So that's what it is. So the difference is that, right? The purpose itself is very specific for embedded systems. So unlike general purpose system, embedded systems possess certain specific characteristics, and these are unique to each embedded system. Okay, so every single embedded system meant for a purpose is different from the other. Okay, so these key characteristics are listed here. Okay, so first is application and domain specific, reactive, real time, operation, harsh environment. We're going to see all these things in the upcoming slide. So we'll just move to the first point, which is application and domain specific. Like Aditya had mentioned, right? So an embedded system is designed for a specific purpose. It will not do any other task. Okay, so here they're giving an example, right? So air conditioner cannot replace microwave oven. Okay, so you cannot they're completely different functionalities. And similarly, I mean, it's a funny thing, a washing machine can only wash and it cannot cook. Makes sense, right? So similarly, every single embedded system is designed for its own purpose. Okay, and the second point is domain specific. Domain specific is, if you take a hearing aid as an example. So this hearing aid is an embedded system that comes under the signal processing domain. Okay, similarly, like you have several other embedded systems. So one embedded system would be there for automation, like industry automation, right? So when you see how I mean, I'm sure you would have seen these how chocolate is made, how pencils are made, kind of videos in YouTube. So if you see, it's like a SCADA kind of automation that goes on, meaning an entire system, right? From the feeder all the way, it actually gives the final product out. Everything is tied to an automated system. Okay, so those kind of systems are again specific to the automation part. They cannot replace, they cannot come to the other domain. So those have nothing to do with signal processing, right? So like that. So they have specific domains to concentrate on. And second point is reactive and real time. Okay, and yeah, again, let's check somebody. Raghu Babu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So can you explain this point here? Uh, Embedded systems, they're reactive and real time. What do you mean by reactive, and what do you mean by real time? You can explain both or any one of them.
Mm, mm, Don't
Sorry.
I don't know, sir.
Give it a shot, man. Come on. I mean, it's not rocket science I'm discussing, right? It's just introduction to embedded system. We are just seeing some characteristic. What do you understand by the term reactive?
Mm. So the system must work based on the environment surrounding it.
Okay. No,
Mm.
when you simply say the word reactive, what do you mean by that?
Re- Reaction.
Yeah, reaction, correct. Yeah, what do you mean by the term reaction?
For a,
Come on, we have Newton's third law, right? Everybody knows Newton's third law. What's
for
that?
every action there is an
Ah,
for
okay.
every action there is an
Right, okay. So what so in the context of embedded system, how would you define that?
the system is designed to special purpose for only one event to react.
Oh, that was the specific application domain, right? We were talking about. Okay, call your friend, call out your friend, somebody who can help you.
Girish.
Girish, please help
Yes, sir.
Raghu Babu. Please help Raghu Babu. What is reactive?
Sir, yeah, that reactive, if you consider washing machine,
Ah,
when we lift that door, suddenly it stopped operation like that.
ah, beautiful. Right, very good. So it reacts to some action, right? So you do
Yes,
something. So you have a sensor somewhere. Okay, that's very good, very good. Thank you, Girish. So you have a sensor placed, and that sensor will keep detecting for any particular change. Okay, so once the sensor gets triggered, and then when the sensor gets the input and the control unit gets triggered, it's going to react to that. A very good example of a washing machine, right? So you lift the lid of the washing machine. There's going to be some IR sensor or something that's going to detect, hey, somebody lifted, and then the control unit is going to say, oh, if somebody lifted the lid, then I should stop spinning. So that's the reaction that you get, right? So yeah, that's what so here another example is given. Air conditioner, right? So it has several mechanical parts. So it has temperature sensor, and based on the threshold temperature you set, if you set 24 degrees C, it's going to check whether the surrounding temperature is 24 or not. If it's 26, it's going to bring it down. If it is 23, it's going to increase. Okay, so you change the compressor or the fan settings to maintain the temperature. So that's how you react to the world. Okay, very good. Right, next, who shall we call? So let's go down. Vidya. Oh, okay, I'm not able to see somebody. Yashas. Yashas. He disappeared. Ah, he's here. Sorry. Hey, Yashas. And you guys are prompt in giving attendance, huh? Yashas. Yashas 1, Yashas 2, Yashas 3. Okay, let's mark Yashas absent. Vidya. Vidya B.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what do you mean by real time?
Uh, the real-time systems are like they have fixed constraint time constraints,
Okay.
and they work under an event. Like they are event-driven systems. They respond to an event based on the time constraints.
Very good. Okay. Can you give one example?
Um, example. Microwave oven.
Okay. Microwave oven. What's the example here? Where's the time?
So when we had to cook something, then for a particular dish, there's a time constraint, and when we fix the time, it responds to that accordingly, and it finishes the process in that particular time.
Good.
And
Good.
if
Good.
there's an any, error or something, then we'll get an alarm.
Good. Very good. It's a very interesting example. Thank you. Thank you, Vidya. Perfect. So right. So that's about the real time aspect, right? So you take microwave oven and then you set a timer, like you want to heat up your coffee or something. So you keep like say 30 seconds or 1 minute. Okay, so it has to stop in the 1 minute mark, correct? And in that 1 minute it has to have powered the microwave signals. It has to heat up the coffee as it is supposed to do, and then it has to stop exactly at 1 minute mark, right? If even if it goes to 1 minute 10 seconds or something, your coffee may spill, right? It may boil and then spill. So you cannot afford to miss the deadline. It's a very nice example. Okay, so that's about the real time aspect of, you have a time constraint. Okay, so here they take it to an extreme, so it's not just limited to microwave, right? If coffee spills, it's okay, you can clean your microwave, but think about flight control systems, and think about your ABS, anti-lock braking systems. So in a flight control system, the pilot says landing gears down, and it has to be down, right? And it cannot say, no, I'm lazy. Let me do it after some time. It cannot say that. And the pilot says flaps up. It has to, the flaps should be up, correct? So similarly, braking system, right? You're going in, you're driving in Bangalore, and yeah, these days there's no traffic, so you'll drive faster even. But even in any case, so braking system is very important, right? In any condition. So you apply the brake, and you need to stop right then and there. Within a fraction of milliseconds, you need to have the embedded system trigger the brakes. Okay, so if it fails, then it's going to lead to catastrophe. Okay, so microwave is something like a soft real time system, where you have deadlines, but if you miss the deadline, it's not going to cause a catastrophe, or it's not going to cause harm to somebody's life, right? But in the case of flight control system and anti-lock braking systems, it's a hard real time system, which means you cannot miss at any cost the deadline. Okay, so very good. And then we have sensors which takes inputs, and actuators which actually reacts to the control signals, which actually enables the embedded system to do all these things. Nice, I like this class. Operation in harsh environment. Okay, embedded systems launched in harsh environment. Let's pick somebody. Who can we pick? Right, Ganesh Shastri.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can you give example of this embedded system operating in harsh environment? What do they mean by that?
Sir, in some difficult situations like braking systems,
Okay, so what's the harsh environment there?
means if sudden obstacle occurs in front of any car or bike,
Okay,
uh, we have to press brake and suddenly the vehicle should stop.
right. Yeah, that's the real time. So you're just one slide behind. So I'm asking about the harsh environment. What do you mean by environment? First of all, what is environment?
Surrounding,
Surrounding. Okay, so when you say harsh environment, what is that?
like earthquakes and
Earthquakes. Okay, nice. Okay, yeah, it's a good one. Or you can think of an embedded system launched on a desert, or in the Himalayas, right? Or even on the moon or in space, right? So where you don't have the normal room temperature things to work on, correct? Think
yes,
of
sir.
an embedded system that is tracking the engine temperature, or functionality of an engine, car engine or a flight engine, right? Think of how much heat the engine will dissipate. Now your embedded system should withstand that heat. It's not like your normal laptop, right? So your normal laptop or cell phone, you don't have to put it next to the engine. Similarly, it has sometimes, if you have an embedded system that you put it on a space shuttle. Now that space shuttle, the moment it launches, its temperature is going to go high, like crazy high. But at the same time, once it reaches this outer space, the temperature is going to go freaking low. Okay, in like in negative temperature, right? Minus 100, not minus 100, I'm not, minus 50 degrees C or something like that. It's going to be really really cold out there, and it has to support this entire range of temperature. It's not only temperature, your vibrations or shock, like what you have mentioned, right? Like the earthquake. So in case if you have an earthquake monitoring like system attached to the buildings or to the nuclear reactors, it has to withstand the shock. It should not be the first thing to blow out, correct? So that should
Yes,
be the
sir.
last thing to blow out. So it has to withstand all these shock. Okay, so that's about the harsh environment. So your embedded system should have additional protection. For that's the reason why we saw all these protection circuits in the previous module, if you remember. So there are also some circuits which protects the other systems. Like this, it will raise an alarm. So it will blow out. If it blows out, it's going to raise an alarm. Okay, so it's something like you will actually keep the alarm pulled down all the time. Meaning, if you can imagine it's something like that, like a guy who keeps down ringing the bell. If he leaves the bell, the bell is going to ring. Okay, it's something like that. Now if the guy dies, he's going to leave the bell, right? So if he dies, then the bell will ring automatically. So it's the opposite way how it is designed. So there are a lot of design techniques that are there. Okay, all right. Next we have distributed. I'm sorry, there's some vendor here. Ah, okay, so let's pick another person. Go down again. We'll randomly pick somebody in between. Kirti. Kirti, are you there? Kirti, you're seems like you're speaking, but we are not able to hear you. Okay, not an issue. Uh, Kakendra. Kakendra. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So what do you mean by distributed characteristic of an embedded system? What are distributed systems?
They are classified on based on their work, sir.
Based on?
Based on their work, like what are the things they do, like they are classified in that terms.
Okay. Why the term distributed comes?
So they are divided in such a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they are making a large some system,
Mm-hmm.
like uh, that distributed system. Sorry, I don't know, sir.
All right. So what's a centralized system? What's a distributed system? Let's pick somebody else. Call someone out. Call your friend. We'll see if somebody can help you out in this.
Krishna.
Krishna,
Yes, sir.
yeah, please help Kakendra.
Sir, in case of central system, there will be only one master who takes control over all the systems,
Hmm.
like a CPU in our case for accessing memory. There are a lot of DMS, but the CPU is the only master who gives the permission to DMS.
Correct.
In distributed systems, example in IoT, a lot of things for it based on the user purpose. For if he wants to open the curtains in using IoT, using one switch, a lot of things has to be connected, so that the whole purpose of the user has to be implemented.
Very good. Nice. Very nice. Thank you. So that's about it, right? So see, if you take, I'll extend Krishna's example only. If you take IoT, let's talk about smart home. If you take smart home, you have smart lighting system, and then you have smart TVs, and you have what to say, smart cameras or CCTV monitoring system, right? Security system and all these things. So each one is an embedded system by itself, and it can independently function of the other, right? Your smart light can independently function of your smart TV, Okay, so each one is a separate embedded system. Now, when it is launched, if you call it a smart home, then these smart TVs are going to start to communicate with the smart lighting system, and it's going to do some kind of communication and exchange the data. For example, let us say you're going to watch a movie, and then you are going to switch on a theater effect on your smart TV. Then the smart TV is going to understand that, oh, okay, you need a theater effect, and it's going to communicate to the smart lighting system and dim the lights or switch off the lights, or create the ambience for you. Okay, so see, these two are completely different embedded systems that work in coordination. The other example is, if you take a car, right? Cars, I have already mentioned it a few times. Uh, Cars have hundreds to thousands of embedded devices on it. For example, you take the power windows, right? You press a button and the windows comes down, right? So that is an embedded system by itself. And you see the mirrors that move, so you actually as an automatic control to adjust the mirror. That's an embedded system by itself. The navigation system is an embedded system by itself. The ABS, the airbag system. So there are like hundreds to thousands of embedded systems right there, and everything is integrated into like one car automotive system, right? So they have to talk among each other at some point, and then they will coordinate. Okay, so the other example they've given here is the automatic vending machine. So there's a card reader here, and then there's a vending unit. So these are two independent systems. And similarly, you have ATM where you have a card reader, and there's a transaction unit, and things like that, and there's a printer unit. So these are all different embedded systems that work in coordination. Okay, good, nice. Small size and weight. Very easy. Okay, whom should we pick around this time? Muhammad Wasim, are you here?
Yes, sir. Hello. Hello.
We can hear you, Wasim.
Yeah. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, I asked you a question.
Uh,
You got the question?
embedded about small size and weight.
Correct. Yeah. Go on.
Embedded systems like cell phones can be portable.
Portable. Okay.
They
Why
are
should
lightweight and you can carry it around.
correct? Why should they be lightweight?
Like real-time systems and all, we can't carry it everywhere, no, sir.
What do you mean we can't carry it everywhere? Okay, you're there. You're almost there. I just want to hear the key point from you. Why should they be lightweight? You take. I mean, cell phone is okay. Cell phone should be lightweight. What if it is heavy? What happens?
Then we cannot carry it around everywhere.
Correct. Okay. See, yeah, you're right. Okay, but cell phones is one example. Thank you, Wasim. Yeah, you actually made the point. Thank you. Okay, correct answer. So cell phones are meant for you to speak and then browse and things like that, right? So you cannot carry, if you have to carry it all the way around. So it has to be compact and lightweight. Okay. Now, if you take any other embedded system, the embedded system, if you remember, the purpose of embedded system is only to aid the functionality of the device that it is embedded to. You take lift, for example. Lift is actually a mechanical system, and you place a microcontroller on top of it. You place an embedded system onto that, and you make the entire thing becomes one system now. Similarly, your flight control system, or you take any embedded system, it is going to be embedded onto some other device, some other component. Okay, now it has to be compact and lightweight, otherwise it is going to increase the weight of the other system. Let us assume that you have a supercomputer, and you're putting it into the flight control system. It's going to do its job the best. Okay, but can the flight fly? You're going to put a Blue Gene supercomputer on your Airbus or something, then it's going to take like majority of its weight, right? You cannot afford to have think of space shuttles, for example, where every gram counts. Okay, so you cannot have more weight to embed it. It has to be as lightweight as possible and as compact as possible. Okay, so that's the point here. Over concerns. All right, my favorite topic. Let's pick somebody. Manusmriti.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Power concerns
So,
on embedded system. Yes, please go ahead.
in embedded system, power concerns are important because if the embedded system, if they work and they dissipate more heat, then there an additional system is needed for cooling them. So the requirement is more. And
Wow, very good, very nice. Thank you. Okay, so if the embedded system, as again I mentioned, it's going to be embedded on top of another system, right? So you want it to be as lightweight as possible and then as small size as possible. Now if more heat is generated, you need to have a bigger heat sink, or you need a cooling fan. In some cases you may need like a cooling pipes, so water cooling or something like that. Now in addition to that, there's one more point. When embedded system dissipates more power, it means your battery is going to get drained faster. Think of your cell phone. Your cell phone should it'll annoy you if you have to charge your cell phone once in 2 hours. Okay, you want to charge your cell phone only once in a day, ideally, right? It has to give you like 16 to 18 hours of your work time. Now if it starts to dissipate more power, then battery will get drained faster, and then you have to keep charging your phone. Now similarly for other devices too, right? It's only an additional component of an existing system, and it should not consume extra power. Like the same, I'll give you the supercomputer example on a flight. So one thing is weight. Okay, and the other thing is, for a supercomputer you need to have, I mean, it's a very, I mean, extreme example, but for you to understand, I'm giving you this example. Like if you have a supercomputer on a flight, then think of how much cooling that you need to provide, and how much power it is going to consume. Supercomputer is going to consume all the fuel. Okay, and the Airbus is just going to, I mean, it cannot make it cannot even propel. It's just going to go around the runway, that's all. Okay, so power is very, very important. You have to do the work in minimal power possible. All right, now we've finished with the characteristics of embedded system. We move on to quality attributes of embedded systems. Okay, in quality attributes, so these quality attributes are non-functional requirements. Okay, so there are functional requirements and non-functional requirements. What is functional requirement? Let us take a lift, for example. The functionality of lift is to take one person from one floor to the other. Okay, so that is the functionality. If I press a floor number 10 or something, it has to take that person to floor 10 and stop there. Okay, and then keep the person safe. Okay, it shouldn't fall down, and these are all part of the functionality. Okay, and if you take braking system, for example, you press the brake, it should trigger the hydraulic braking system, and it has to halt the car. Okay, so that's the functionality. If you take non-functional requirements, this is more as a supplementary requirements for this embedded system. This is not the core functionality, but you need all these supplementary functionalities to for the embedded system to work. Okay, so these are classified into two. One is operational quality attributes, the second one is non-operational quality attributes. Okay, So these are the operational quality attributes. So response, throughput, reliability, maintainability, security, safety, all these things, again these terms you have is very familiar to you. Okay, so we will just see one by one. So response. Okay, so we'll again check with somebody quickly, right? We did Manushruti, Indra, Indraja.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So response time. What is response time with respect to embedded system?
I don't know, sir.
Think of it. Think about it. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Okay, your ATM. Let's take ATM as an example. Tell me what is a response. What is response time with respect to an ATM?
If we enter the pin, it will respond like
Okay.
according to the.
Hmm. It will respond to it.
Mm,
Yeah.
uh,
But
and
how?
it will.
Let's. I'll give you an example. You enter the pin. Okay. You put in your credit card. So now these days, your ATM machine swallows the credit card. So you don't. You just hope that it will somehow I mean, spit it out later. Okay. So given that this scenario, you have also entered your pin number. Pin. So now your ATM is just silent. It's not doing anything. So what happens then? How do you feel? So what is the response here? Is there any response?
Yes, sir. It will be a response.
What's the response? I mean, I'm just telling you, it's not doing anything. It took away your credit card and you have entered your pin and it's not doing anything. How will you feel?
Mm, I feel nothing, sir.
What's that? No, given this
If it doesn't
scenario,
give any response, how do
ah,
you how I feel?
yeah. How will you feel?
Mm,
How long will you wait?
I just I won't wait, sir. I just take out
Just
the card.
no, it took away your card. It swallowed your card. These days, that's how it is, right? It either locks your card or it actually completely takes it in. Correct?
It's locked the card.
Yeah, it'll lock the card. Have you used ATMs?
Yes, sir.
I mean, most of the ATMs these days do that. So they lock your card. You enter it, right? It'll hold on to it until it actually finishes the transaction. It will not give it back. Okay, I'll tell you
Yes, sir.
what I will do.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
I will just wait
Okay.
for probably 1 or 2 minutes, and then I'll just call the security or I'll call the call center or somebody. Right? The system is not responding. Can you please do something about it? My card is inside. I have already entered the pin. I want my card back. I'm just going to complain, right? It's
Yes.
going to be, yeah. So that's what it is. So you want your ATM to give you your money within a specified amount of time, correct? It cannot take too long. I don't have patience for, I mean, maybe it will give after 15 minutes. Okay, maybe it is thinking, 15 minutes, we'll do all the updates, we'll count all the money in the ATM, we'll do everything, and then finally we'll give this guy some 100 rupees he's asking. Okay, but that's not why I am there for. I can wait only for 1 minute or so. I am a very impatient guy. Okay, so it's like that. Similarly, if you take flight control system, you should. I always I give this example, right? So when you say flaps down, the flaps must be down as soon as the pilot says that. Okay, it cannot say, man, I'm also like ATM. Let me take my sweet time, and then plane is gonna crash, or it can go. I mean, you don't have the flight under your control. Okay, so the response, that it's how quick your system responds. Okay, and it differs from one system to the other. Okay, let's take an electronic toy that is also an embedded system. Again, as I said, there are hard real-time systems, there are soft real-time systems. An electronic toy, let's say Talking Tom toys, right? I bought one for my daughter. So you say something and it's going to repeat what you said in a funny voice. Okay, so it has to do it instantaneously. But then if it doesn't, if it misses a turn, I'm not going to get mad and I'm not going to call the call center right away. Okay, I'll just say it's a toy. Come on, can fault, not a problem. But if it does the same for my car, I press the brake and it says, not this time. I'll skip this turn. I'm dead. Okay, so it differs from system to system. Throughput. Okay, I just take the class for another 5 minutes and I leave you guys. Okay. Mehul. Mehul Sakaria. Mehul. Mehul Varshne.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So can you explain what is throughput? You must have heard throughput. You're learning it in operating systems, correct?
Sub throughput is basically passing.
Passing. Passing what? The subject.
No, sir.
No, you should pass the subject also. Yeah, you can say throughput is. I mean, you can relate throughput to passing the subjects also.
Throughput
You know.
system,
Yeah, tell me, tell me.
yeah, we
Go on.
so don't know really.
Okay, man, come on, try. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. What do you
So
understand? Yeah.
basically,
Hmm.
throughputs are basically for an embedded system. There is some kind of limit or the production means efficiency is there. If it's passes that amount of efficiency of the unit,
Hmm.
then you can measure the what is efficiency, whether it is on based on efficiency we can measure it's good or bad or the quality of that.
Okay. All right. You're almost there. Okay. Good. It's okay. You're at least attempted, right? You're almost there. Good. So throughput is nothing but how much work is done in a given unit of time. That's all. It's a very simple. It's a rate of doing work. How much work you are able to do in a given time. Okay. Let's take if one in 1 second. How many jobs can you do? In 1 minute, how many jobs can you do? It again depends on the embedded system. You take here they're giving the card reader as an example. Okay, so how much transactions can you do in 1 minute or in one day? Given a unit of time, how much you can do every day? I what to say? I read so many things in one day. So something like that, right? So that's about the throughput. Okay, so in operating systems we come across this term again and again. Throughput is nothing but how many the number of jobs getting done in every unit of time, jobs per second or something like that. Okay, so that's the throughput. The other thing is throughput is measured in terms of benchmarks. Okay, to give you to idea of what is a benchmark, you can these are the standard applications. Okay, and these application becomes the reference point for you to measure the performance. Okay, so for example, I'll tell you. Let us take your cell phone as an example. Now how much time you're able to click the pictures, right? So consecutively if you keep clicking, if you take selfies, you can consecutively you can take multiple selfies, correct? You have a cell phone and your friend has another cell phone. You can compare its performance by saying, okay, I'm opening up the camera app, like a ucam or even the normal camera, right? And then I keep clicking the picture. Okay, click, 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 and he's also going to use, or he or she is also going to use the same UCam application, and then he's gonna click, 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 click. How many pictures you take in, say, in 5 seconds, and based on that you will say, ha, see, my phone is better than yours. Suck it up. Okay, now here the benchmark is your UCam application or the camera application. So that application becomes a benchmark. Okay, that's the reference point. In that reference point, you're going to push the camera button as fast as you can and see how many times you can take the snap. And the other thing is, if you take YouTube for example, you actually load a video, the same video, the other, you mean you click onto a video, and your friend is also clicking onto another video. How long it takes for you to buffer it? And similarly, the download time, right? You do a download of a particular thing, or you use a share it or some application. So these applications become the benchmark. Okay, and based on that benchmark, you have some metric, and that metric will differ from benchmark to benchmark. Okay, if you take camera, it's number of clicks. If you take share it, how much time it takes for you to transfer the data or file from one device to the other, right? So the metrics will change, and the benchmarks will also be different, right? So there are different benchmarks for you to measure the performance. Okay, so we will just conclude with this. Okay, reliability. Okay, Prashant. Yeah, what is reliability? Reliability. Huh?
So to rely on something.
To rely on something. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
All good.
That's as literal as it can get. I cannot say you are wrong, but you have to be a little more specific. Come on. So let's take right, your printer for example. Okay. So now you give a print, and it says, no, cartridge is in ink is low, I can't print, and you just replace the cartridge. It's a brand new cartridge you put, and you say print. It say, no, ink low, I won't print. Is that printer reliable? Huh? Is it reliable? Seriously? Hello, Prashant. I think we can easily sell all cheap printers to you.
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So you won't treat that printer as a reliable printer anymore, because you just put in a new cartridge, and it still says it's man, it can't print. It's crazy. It's an unreliable printer. So basically, reliability is nothing but it's like how much percentage can you rely upon. It's nothing but probability. Okay, you will have a probability to fail, and 1 minus that is how reliable it is. That's all. Okay, so there are a couple of metrics here. So one is mean time between failures and mean time to repair. Okay, mean time between failures means, of course, I mean, at some point embedded system may fail. It will say, I mean, it will raise a false alarm or something. It may fail. It will say the printer may not even work, right, at any given time. At some point it will break down. You'll have to call a serviceman and repair that. Okay, but how long does it work between this failure and the next one? So that's the mean time between, and you average it out, right? It's the mean time between failures. Okay, and mean time to repair is nothing but how much time it takes for the serviceman to repair. And he says, sir, it can be very simple. It can be like, sir, it's only a driver update. I'll just update the driver and it's done. Half an hour, done. Not half an hour, it's even less than that, right? 15 minutes or 10 minutes even. But sometimes it will be like, sir, the motor is gone. We have to replace it. then he takes it to the service center, he replaces the motor, he brings it back 4 days later. So the 4 days you will have to wait without the printer, and that becomes the repair time. Okay, so let us say your printer is a very bad printer, you just bought something in some sales. Okay, every month it will fail. Okay, and every month it will fail. So the mean time between failure is approximately 30 days. Okay, mean time between failure is 30 days. Every month it will fail one way or the other, and every time it fails, this guy will take that to his service center, he'll take 4 days. Okay, so now what happens, 4 days out of this 30 days becomes the mean time to repair. So the actual working of the printer is only 24 days, right? So the remaining time you will spend it only with repairing time. So that's what the relation between mean time between failures and mean time to repair. Okay, so mean time between failure is nothing but the frequency of failure, and mean time to repair is how much time you spend in the actual service. Okay, so with that we will stop this session, and it's been a really good session. I'm really happy with the interaction we had today. Okay, we'll continue this in the next class. Thank you guys.